If you're just joining us, welcome. We are glad you're with us. Today we have a wonderful trainer in Bill Predebon. He is someone that has a wealth of information. He is a successful entrepreneur. He's run several businesses. He's now running a Renatus business and real estate business. He is a marketer that's had very, very good success. And I'm excited to hear what he's got to teach us today so that we can be better at it. I know he's planning on reviewing what comes after signing up and funding. And that's a new beginning, as he says. And Bill, we're so glad you're with us. How are you, sir?
Yeah, fantastic, Ron. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
Right on. So we're gonna, as far as the beginning goes, we're not, or the video goes, we're not using the video, right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
Unless you'd like it.
Well, I mean, yeah, if it's too difficult to upload, right?
No, we can do it. It was just, I guess, just the one day, and I don't know why that was so difficult. But anyway, if you'd like it, we can do it.
I mean, it's we can. I guess let's see. Uh-oh, what did I do here?
Oh, that was me.
Oh, okay.
Hey, you.
Is that better?
Now I can see you.
Cool. Hopefully you can't see my mess at my desk. So how are you guys? How you doing, Ron? Thanks for what you do here. Thanks for putting this together. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kicking this training off and keep going on what we've been talking about. Once again, thanks, Ron, for all you do for us and for putting this together and for always checking in with me in the evening or in the morning so we can get our ducks in a row. You know, I appreciate it. It helps me get on track. All right, folks, welcome. We've got, I'm going to text my team right now. I always text them in the morning. I have a team call that I do on Tuesday nights with my personal team. And then I let them know, I remind them about all the trainings and stuff. A lot of them, probably you guys are all on the 411 anyway. But I just let them know on my group text. So we're only at 55 people, which is not bad, but we could obviously get a few more people on this line. If you want to text some folks, feel free. The training is starting now. All right. So I don't know if you guys, I'm guessing most of you all were on the call yesterday. Michael did a phenomenal job, and he's going to spend a little more time on it tomorrow, probably finishing up. But the funding options is something I like to train on, and that I think is absolutely pertinent to your business when it comes to the Renatus business and placing orders. And so that was part, like if you remember last week, I was talking about the follow-up. I'm going to finish up with the follow-up. I won't go into as many funding details as Michael was doing because he's doing such a good job of it. I'll highlight a few things that he mentioned. I just think some of the things he said were so spot on. Naturally, being the #1 income earner in the company, he's done it a few times. But if you want to get to that point or challenge him at that position, obviously, I think understanding the follow-up and the funding and placing the orders is just key. So cool. Remember, let's see, I'll go to the chat here. Boom, where's that little guy? Don't know why Zoom won't show Money Matrix, but oh, that was from earlier. That's true, it didn't. That's probably because we're computer challenged all the time. Let's see, so my number, 760-533-3141. That's my cell phone number, just so you guys have it, 760-533-3141. If you have a question, and I know I say this every time, so most of you know this, but for those of you who are new, if you have a question or a thought or a comment, or you want to discuss something that's pertinent to your business and what you're working on now, or what you're struggling with, or an objection you came across, throw it out there. I can change paths. I can go off on a tangent to help you discuss what it is that you're going through. I don't have to stick with my training, and we can go back to my training afterwards. So anything y'all need, that's why we're here. I'd much rather be here for you than for what I think you need, if that makes sense. All right, cool. So Yesterday, in fact, I had 2 one-on-one follow-ups on a holiday, which in my opinion is kind of cool because when there's a holiday, there's less traffic and less people. So I don't mind that actually. And so it also means that, I'm doing business. So it's nice to have follow-ups and get in those follow-ups. So last week we talked about that follow-up, and I talked a little bit about what I bring to the follow-up. And again, I always bring my laptop, and I always bring my a notepad. My notepad I use for the funding options. I write out the funding options on a notepad. Here in Arizona, we do not do a live follow-up anymore with the group for a couple of different reasons. But I think it's a fantastic event. I personally feel that if you are not attending your follow-up event, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you have the opportunity to go to the follow-up and you have a follow-up in your area, I recommend going to it. And if you don't, you may want to start one, to be honest with you, because being at that follow-up will help you when you're actually at your own follow-ups. Typically, you're going to do a follow-up from the follow-up. Anyway, a one-on-one, it's in my opinion more effective to be one-on-one, but it's definitely more efficient if you've got a leader, a 5-star, money-making leader in front of the room, going through the follow-up. And especially when it's someone like Michael or Christian or Dane or these leaders across the country, the guys in Seattle and Hawaii, and that they're leading these follow-ups with actually checking in on a group. If you've got a small group, like Michael said, and they are, and they're there, and he's asking them specifically, hey, do you want a home? Do you, what source are you thinking about? And that's just powerful information. So, you guys have to follow up when, we'll talk, we'll lay this out. It's funny because Ron put up there the secret. So we were discussing it this morning, and the secret to the follow-up is this, and placing the order, which we'll get to, you guys. It's not a secret, obviously, but is that it's the beginning. And I let my clients and students know that it's not the end. Like it's just the beginning. Like it's a relief and it's exciting and it seems like you've accomplished something. All of those things are true, but it's literally the beginning. You haven't even, all this stuff leading up to it, collecting a decision and getting through due diligence, overcoming objections with them and understanding their position and where they are in life and what they're looking for and why they're joining Renatus and all that stuff. That's all pertinent information, but that is the preliminary events that have to take place to get started. And getting started is placing the order. You've heard that. Hey, when are you going to get started? Are you ready to get started? It's a starting. It's a beginning. It's the future. It's the beginning of the rest of the new chapter, right? And then what's nice about all the way through the process of due diligence and through the process of walking a client, you guys think of some of these things that I say all the time, is that I'm constantly foreshadowing, or I call it future pacing. Future pacing, I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm constantly letting people know, when you get started, when you are a member, when you're watching your education, when you are at one of our events, when you're part of the team, when you're working with the Billy Goat team, when you and your friends are a part of this, this is what is going to happen. This is how you'll feel. And then they begin to picture themselves. It's much easier for them when you constantly, aren't using the word if, and you're not just staying in the present. But when you're talking about the future and what it looks like and how bright it looks and what events are going to take place, their imaginations go. People like to touch it, feel it, squeeze it, taste it, smell it. Those senses have to do with money and success and new adventures, and people relate to that. And we have to, it's important that we speak to them in those terms so they can relate to what's possible. And so, I'm always reminding them of what is going to come after they get started, what they're going to experience. And then I get some of the facts, right? So I let people know, I'm going I'm going to want to spend time with them. That they're going to make their first call to Gavin, whether they've got a deal done or not, they're going to have that opportunity. Now, I'm not telling them what to do, but I'm suggesting what to do. I've told stories about what other students have experienced when they make their first call to Gavin. And so they can get on a path, right? And then, typically I'm going to let them know, I'm going to spend an hour, 2 hours, whatever it takes, sit down with you and kind of look at the education and decide which classes you want to start with. And you guys hear Michael and Christian talk about this all the time, their 90-day path. And again, within compliance, you can't tell someone what they're going to do and that they're going to be in a deal, but you lay out that groundwork based on other experiences and stories, right? So they're excited about what's coming up. I mean, and it's true, that's all the beginning. That's once they get started, these things are going to happen. So we're building this up. So, at the follow-up, again, obviously right off the bat is, they've done some due diligence. They've been to a couple of an event or two or three, and we're doing the follow-up, and we want to just make sure that we set them at ease. A lot of times I'll sit down and we might talk pleasantries for a minute. I don't spend a lot of time on it, but naturally that's a courtesy and a polite way and a business way to do things. And then you want to get down to business. As I'm doing courtesies, I'm pulling out my notebook, I'm opening up my laptop, I'm pulling up the website. I've got the Renatus website, my back office, and I've got my PowerPoint up actually, because there's a couple slides that I like to touch on, especially the differences between the packages so they can understand that if they have that question. And then naturally, the first thing I'm going to ask them is what is their question? What are they looking for? What any thoughts or questions or comments that they might have in regards to the Renatus opportunity, what they've seen. A lot of them have them and they can't really think of them right away. And so I just move right in, and I'm like, and I'll suggest a few things just like I do, when you guys are there Thursday night and you're like, hey, what did you like best? And you don't sit and wait. You might suggest a few things like, hey, what did you like best? Is it the community or the real estate? Or what do you think about that velocity banking? And that's amazing. If you're like me, you probably liked all of it. And then you stop. So now they have a bunch of options. So I might say, are you familiar with, do you know exactly where you're going to get started? Do you need to know a difference between any of the options? We only sell two products, offer two products, AIT and Essentials. And do you understand the combo, or do you want a little bit more description of what $20,000 is gonna get you? So I may make a few suggestions. No, maybe you can just enlighten me again one more time. What does the combo get? And then I'll pull up the slide with the combo on there, and I'll go through the coaching and the one-on-one and the lifetime, and I'll hit the highlights, right? Unless they have a specific question. We kind of went through that yesterday, and then. Again, Michael talked about it yesterday. I learned if you have team members, if you have folks that you care about in the Renatus community and your community that are not on these calls, listening to someone like Michael and Christian, I think they're missing out. And so remind people where your friends and your family where they can get this information from and to join in. Now, not everybody can do it based on work. So it makes sense, but it's just a really good call, I think. And, Michael talked about it. The funding is really the step that you're going to come into. I really liked, so when I start to move forward and with my follow-up, the time that you're going to spend there is still going to be a considerable amount of time. I allot for 2 hours without a doubt. If it gets done early, great. I can have a beer or a drink before my next meeting or whatever the case is, but or get some food or take a break. But typically it's going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours, right? And but you don't want to waste time and you don't want to confuse people, right? A confused mind doesn't necessarily make a decision very well. So we're trying to get to the point, and the point is let's place the order. The point is let's get them funded and let's figure out where the funding is. They might come up with another question in a little while, but let's get those questions answered and let's talk about getting them started, right? And that first question is, when we find the money here, and I say when, not if and how, but we're going to find the money on figuring out how to get you started. Are you ready to do the combo? I'm assuming you based on our conversation that you're going to do the full combo, the Extreme Plus combo, the full package. You're going to buy the $20,000 package. You're going to enroll in the combo, right? All that type of language. And they're going to agree with me, right? And then I always ask, I ask sometimes on Thursday night, I sometimes ask after the second event, have you considered some of the options that you have thought of to come up with $20,000? Like if you had to, borrow it to buy a brand new car for your kids or for yourself or whatever the case is, where would that money come from? And then, I shut up and I listen. I want to see what they have to say. And if they say, well, I've thought about a couple ideas, I'm like, cool, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Or sometimes they'll come out and they'll tell me what they're thinking of, which option. And most of the time they'll come out and say, no, I really don't have it. I don't have access to it. I'm like, don't worry about it. Okay, we'll go through a dozen different ways for funding and we'll figure it out together. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so, it's not always that way. And you'll hear that when you listen to some of the trainings, a lot of folks do have the money. They just don't know that they have the money because most people think about buying it with cash. Being able to just close immediately. And so, when we go through these orders or through these funding options, we jar their memory, they're like memory joggers. And so anytime I talk about, and I'm not going to go through them all because Michael has, but I'll highlight some and then we're going to move to placing the order, any questions and things like that, you guys. I don't want to waste your guys' time with trying to talk about what Michael already talked about. When I talk, I'll mention one thing about cash, right? When I talk about cash, and I'll talk about a couple of objections that I get sometimes or comments or whatever that some people say in the funding process, and that you might have experienced or you might experience in the near future when you're doing follow-ups that might help you. But when I talk about cash, Michael kind of touched on this too, is that a lot of times I say, cash is a great option. But I remind them that, let's hold off on that. Even if you're thinking you have the cash, or even if you know where you could get the cash, even if it was your brother was going to give you $20,000 cash. I said, let's table that. Let's see if we can't be creative here and find some thoughts where you might be able to find the money, because your cash might be far more valuable in the near future based on this. And I shouldn't even say might be. Your cash will be far more valuable in the near future. Based on the education that you're going to dive into, and you're going to be excited about putting your cash to work for 20 or 40%. And so then they start to think of that like, oh, that's cool. And plus it doesn't look like we're greedy, right? It doesn't look like I'm just sitting here trying to say, oh, cash, let's just pay cash. Now I also remind them that it's still an option and that we might come back to it, or that, we'll make a choice when we figure it out. So I'm not putting it off the table, but I'm getting their mind to think about the possibilities of what now they're going to be able to do. When I am going through some of the funding options too, I'm asking people right up front before I even mention the credit card and start going through a line of credit or a personal line of credit and how that works. Hey, how's your credit? And most people know, right? Oh, I don't know. You know what I mean? That's pretty rare. And then you got to expand. Okay, well, when's the last time you applied for any credit? Well, this time. Okay, how did you buy your car? Do you have a student loan? I'll start to ask them about their credit if they don't know. But most of the time they'll let me know. Oh, it's not very good. I'm working on it. Usually, we don't want to talk about ourselves in a negative light all the time, especially in a business setting. So we're not going to sit there and go, oh my God, I trashed my credit and I haven't made a payment in 20 years and all this stuff. That's not going to be the case. So, but I'll ask them how their credit is. And the reason I do that is because if their credit is terrible, I'm going to spend more time on Get Funded. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, them and their credit cards. But I may ask them, do you have a credit card? How much is the limit? So you're going to ask these questions about it, not just explain it. And then you've heard everybody say this before, and Michael's done this on many trainings, is that when I discuss an option for funding, I'm always telling a story. I'm telling some sort of funding story about that particular option. And then each time I go to a new category, such as a 401k and retirement, I'll ask them if they have a retirement, or do you know of anybody who has a retirement? And then I'll dive into that particular strategy of funding. But if they mention to me they have this or they have that or they own their own home, I don't just, oh, that's cool. You know, if they say, hey, yeah, I own my own home, then I'm going to focus on the HELOC, at least for a little while, until I can find out if they have equity, right? And then I'm going to find out if they have a job, and I'm going to find out if they have what their credit looks like, and I'm going to find out how much equity they owe in their house, and might even pull it up on the internet and see what their house is worth and ask them what they owe, because I can stop right there. Now, I'm not going to not necessarily go through the other funding options, but if we find a funding option, you know, I want to ask them if that's what they want to do. I want to tell a story about that happening, and then I want to focus on that. And I mean, that's finding the money. Why would I continue to confuse them and give them a bunch of options necessarily if that's the one they want to use? Now, I'm going to brush on the other ones, right? I'm going to mention, you know, I'm going to mention angel investor, life insurance, these types of options, so they have choices. But if we found an option and it's one they like, I'm gonna spend time so they understand it. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and initiate it. And again, this is getting started. So, you know, in the funding, and I'll get to folks that aren't, that don't have any of these options like myself, right? When I got started. So, but when I find someone that does have a funding option, that is a traditional funding method, I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to tell a story about it, and then I'm going to help initiate it. That's when we go to the order, you know. In fact, Lee and I were sitting there yesterday with Bruce, and we found his funding. And so, you know, we went right there, and I walked Lee. Lee is getting 5-star qualified. This will be his first combo. And we're walking through the funding, and we figured it out with the funding for Bruce. Bruce is all in. And then Lee actually stepped out and said, hey, you know, why don't we get, you know, Bill, should we get the order going? I'm like, exactly, Lee, right? So I walked Lee through placing the order in the back office, how to place an education order. I have my computer out, have my laptop, have my back office open, showed him where the pending orders are, how we've got to transfer some funds around in order to do that. So we're going to place an order with a cashier's check and use today's date. We're also going to explore Get Funded Online. In my personal opinion, Get Funded Online is for everybody, even if you've already found the option. So Lee also took him back to their home area, and they went back together and did Get Funded by themselves. I mean, as well as placing the order. So those two things occurred that day. We walked through how both of those things work. When I talk to someone about Get Funded, you can't just tell them, you know, hey, just go online and fill it out. It takes 5 minutes. You know, I show them the enroller. I told Lee that he needs to become an enroller. I pulled up Get Funded Online. You know, I share with them what that looks like, the start here, the watch the video. And then I shared with them the experience that they're going to have. And the most important thing is that they get the $1 free 7-day credit report. And that the most important thing is that they send their login and password over to Credit Nerds, because otherwise it'll be an incomplete assessment. I tell them the excitement about how they'll get a phone call in 24 hours the next day, and what's possible. I explain to them, you know, not only we don't always get what we ask for, so you might want to ask for a little bit more, but that's entirely up to them. I share with them a funding story about some of the stories we saw on the internet on the webinar not too long ago. Also on you know, my own personal experiences of a couple of my guys recently that also got funding, $47,000 to one guy, $27,000 to another guy who got no funding like 6 months prior to that. I tell these stories of the funding and how it works and get them excited about it. So you know, I'll spend some time on Get Funded, and I think that Get Funded is a powerful tool, and I try to send everybody there if I can, and regardless of finding the options, because sometimes that credit will be used in the future for them anyway. If they choose to have someone get that credit for them, that will be used for future real estate, right, or future businesses or whatever they're going to do, marketing. So that gives them an opportunity. So naturally, the funding is the end of the due diligence, and the placing the order is the beginning of the system, right? In the beginning of their Renatus experience. And so, you know, a lot of folks, though, these are a couple things that come up, right? A lot of folks really don't have the means, right? They don't own their house. They don't have good credit. They don't have a retirement account. They don't have a whole life insurance policy. And they don't have cash or credit. They don't have a business. And in fact, they don't even have a asset that they can leverage, right? A lot of times I'll go to other assets besides houses. I'll go to, cars, business assets that they may have if they're a business owner. And I'll look to even things that have some value that they can sell, right? To help offset some of the 20,000, as well as it might be ultimately at the end, it might be their means to their down payment on the UGA. Right? And again, I don't talk about UGA, and Michael's going to finish going through each of these in detail. But I will tell you that when I go through these funding options with somebody, I kind of know, and you're going to know this, right? We know where people stand. They let us know that they don't have these things available to them. And that was me. When I got started, you guys know that the homes that we owned, they weren't in my name for one. There were two of them. One was my wife's home prior to us getting together. And, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in 2006, I think, as a loan officer. And when I saw the potential with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I knew I was wanting to get into real estate. I was like, this is perfect, right? The market's moving up. This is Arizona, end of 2006. I'm a loan officer. I'm going to refinance the property so I can get a little bit better loan. Now, I didn't take cash out at the time. I knew I didn't want to do that. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't want to do that. Probably because it wasn't my money. It was my at the time she was my girlfriend. But I knew that if we were looking for a new house and we were going to buy 100% financing and get this bigger house, and then we were going to live in it for 2 years and sell it, right? That was my strategy. Unbelievable. From reading a couple frickin' books and buying a program online, that was my strategy. So when I did the numbers, I saved us money on the mortgage through the refinance, but it's still negatively cash flowed, like $400 a month with the HOA fees that we had, taxes and insurance, and renting it out. And I thought that was a good idea. You guys, frickin' dumb. I thought it was a good idea because of appreciation. And so then we bought a house, 100% financing in my wife's credit in 2007. Because I was assuming that everybody was doing it and the market was going to go up, and I didn't really care what the payment was because I was going to refinance it anyway. And after we got the property, and then we were going to have equity, and it was going to be a fairy tale. And by the time the ink dried, the house was $250,000 upside down. Right? Nobody's fault but my own. It wasn't the bank because they got me a loan. I mean, I took advantage of the greatest possible stated everything loan that we could get. And she made good income, but I did not. And luckily I was not on the loan, but I knew what I was doing. And so, my situation was I had come out of bankruptcy of my own. I just completely screwed my wife's credit. Well, we were making the payments, but, we were over leveraged now. We just bought a house. I had very little income. I had no retirement. I was a business owner for, a ski bum for 10 years and then a business owner for 8 years that failed. I didn't own a house. I didn't have credit. I didn't have credit cards. I didn't have retirement. I didn't have a whole life insurance policy. I had none of that. I didn't have anything to sell. I'd already sold the two possessions that I loved the most, which were two nice watches that I bought during my business. I sold those in 2007 when I needed freaking money to help pay the bills. It was a crap show, for lack of a better term that I'm not allowed to probably say here. We experience people like me all the time. When it comes to funding. So when I talk about funding, I'll give you a couple of insights here. Number one is I'm going through this funding knowing where this person stands. But I explain to them these stories in detail, like Michael went over yesterday, because at the end, I'm going to bring up an angel investor. And I'm going to remind them that of all these strategies that I want to teach them these strategies so they can begin to think of someone who might have them. In fact, when I know that they don't have these things, I remind them that I want them to start thinking about people in their lives that have these options for them. And then I'm going to explain to them that at the end, we're going to talk about how that's going to come into play at the end of this hour-long funding session, right? And I'm going to spend half of my follow-up on the funding, right? And thinking about the positive when they do get the funding, right? And Michael touched on it yesterday. I'm not going to, what he did was amazing when he talked about how you borrow money, that we're not taking out a loan, that loans, borrowing money is a negative term, but an opportunity, you guys, I will tell you, I use that all the time. I've raised, I don't even know anymore, over $5 million for my real estate. And the other day, I raised $45,000 in 1 hour from someone I hadn't talked to in over a year to get this triplex I'm buying. And she's an amazing lady, a Renata student, and life's been in her way. And my text was an opportunity text, right? And it was foreshadowed. It had forecasting on it, and it also had opportunity written all over it. And it had, I'm sure you're excited about this, and I know you probably want to put your money to work, all of these things that I project that they're probably feeling. And they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's not, hey man, I'm buying this house. I need to borrow some money to get the down payment. It's nothing negative. It's always positive. It's always an opportunity for them to get involved in something that will benefit them. And I create it in my text and my call for it to be their option, right? I'll give you an example. I'm buying a $900,000, $1 million home in Paradise Valley from a warm market lead that I got at the gym. And I've done my research. The guy paid cash for the property, and I've been courting this deal for about 2 weeks. Now, if I pay cash for this house, he's going to take a $200,000 bath. But I present that offer, and that offer is there to him. And so we're meeting this afternoon. But I presented an opportunity on several fronts because I think it's one of the best opportunities for him, which is to partially fund or entirely fund the deal, or owner carry the down payment or the majority, the upfront costs, or several different options thereabouts. But I didn't say, if you want to make more money, you don't want to lose money, then, this would be the choice. You should lend me your house so that I don't have to get a hard money loan and it doesn't have to cost me any. Those things all have negative tonalities to them, right? I present this first option, and then I blow up the second option with opportunity. You and I could be working together with this. There's a possibility you could either get a HELOC on your property and you could fund the entire thing. And not only would you not lose money, but it's potentially you could make money on this deal. And I'll take care of, and I go through this scenario with him, right? And he likes that option. And I can end up buying this house, and I will probably end up buying this house with not having to raise a single dollar, not having to get a hard money loan, not having to have any risk whatsoever except on the profit. And the potential profit on this deal will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000. And it's not, I'm not exaggerating that. All disclosures are out there. That's not typical, blah, 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 blah. But I just flipped the house right down the street just a year ago. And I bought the house for $725 at auction, or $728 at auction, whatever it was. And the home came back at 1.6 when I was done. It took me over a year and a half to do the deal, which I know it's going to take a year to do this one. But even if the market slides, there's an incredible potential, and the guy will just end up holding on to it if the market slides, right? There's all kinds of options. My point is, I presented it as an opportunity. So when I'm working with folks that are struggling to find it, right? I'm telling my story, and I'm telling many other stories of people that didn't have the money when they started, right? And especially that person's age. And if typically I'm a little older, unfortunately. And so when I'm talking to someone a little bit older, especially someone in their, or I'm sorry, even a little bit younger, I'm praising them because they're in a situation maybe when they're much younger that a situation is I was in when I'm much older. So I cut myself down a little bit, if that makes sense. I make it look like it's not that bad, right? And it's not. And I'll tell my story, and I'll tell other stories of folks that have had to go through an angel investor. And Michael Huggins comes to mind, right? And so that's just one of hundreds, if you will. And then I will start to remind them about all of these options that we went through and who are they thinking of, right? And I'm not going to spend time on that part of it, Michael covering that, but I'm going to tell you that, for me, I offer to be there. I offer to be on a 3-way call. And I got this from John O'Neill. I offer to be on a three-way call, to be in person with them and to help borrow those funds and to help actually present that opportunity. I will practice it with them before they make the call to their uncle, right? Or, make the call to your uncle, but don't do the sales pitch. Let's get them on the phone with me and I'll do the sales pitch. I'll tell you this, and you've heard me say this before. One of my very first students funded their combo. And this student and her husband, they had no resources whatsoever, zero. They started at UGA Essentials in order to get in and struggled. And over time, a little bit of time, we found out that there was an angel investor in her family, someone who was an entrepreneur. In fact, I'll let you know her uncle owns Coors Brewery, like Coors frickin' beer. And it's an estranged uncle. And so she hadn't talked to him in I don't know how long. And so we started developing an idea behind that system, behind that person rather. And so the first thing was for her to reach out to her uncle, and she did. It wasn't for her to sell him on something that's a $20,000 loan. It was for her to just talk to him. And then we set the stage. She got him to agree to a phone call. I mean, he lived in Colorado. I lived in Arizona, and so did she and her husband. So we weren't driving there. It was over the phone. We got him on the phone, and we explained a little bit about Renatus and what they were doing. Now, one of the things that I think that's important when you're talking to your clients and your students and yourselves when you're raising money is, what have you done already? What skin? Like, if you think about a hard money lender, they want skin in the game. And their skin in the game is 10% down, 20% down, right? It used to be, 100%, 110%. If you breathe, they didn't even drive the house. It's not like that anymore. You might find a lender or two, but it's not like that anymore. So everybody wants to know what your contribution is. And sweat equity doesn't always cut it, right? And your promise doesn't always cut it. And your love for the game doesn't always cut it. It has to be. And so here's what you've already done, right? What I told her uncle is that, listen, they've already decided what they're going to do. Having no resources at all, they've already bought the essentials at the UGA mark. They've already put a $500 stake into the game. But more importantly, they spent time to find someone like me who's done over 100 deals, who's been in this game for 10 years, who understands, and I'm their mentor, I'm their affiliate, I'm their coach, and I'm walking them through the best system. They've researched America and found Renatus as the greatest system and best opportunity to set them up to succeed the fastest. They're in the game. They're doing it with or without you. However, they believe that the opportunity they're presenting to you is the best and you're the best person for it, right? And so I'm giving them credit that the uncle may not have seen and they might not have known to give, because we don't feel like we've ever done enough, right? We don't feel like we have nothing. We haven't bought a house. We haven't flipped a house. We haven't made a sale. We haven't done any of these things yet. So we haven't contributed. That's not true. You've searched it out. You've made the commitment. You've put some skin in the game. You're going to meetings. You've found a mentor. Whoever enrolled you is someone who's going to be your affiliate. You're working with other great entrepreneurs and business owners and real estate investors in the community. You've done all of these things, or your student has done all these things. So you and your student, whoever you're helping out here, has got skin in the game, and you've already made the decision that you're doing it with or without him, and the opportunity is there. And so now he can see there's some value there, right? And then it was just a matter of presenting what we're asking for, what we're looking for, what the opportunity is. And at the end of the call, I obviously don't have time to go through the whole call, but at the end of the call, this was an hour-long conversation, right? He said, all right, I want your financials. I want you to know your plan to make the money up. And I'm going to Mexico to my vacation home in Mexico. I'll be back in 30 days and I'll have an answer. And they got that done in a month. They got that done in a day. He took that with him. They texted him or called him or emailed him during the month 1 or 2 times. He came back and he lent them, he gave him a $20,000 loan, 1% interest for 5 years. And she hadn't talked to him in years. And he's an entrepreneur. He's a business owner. He understands where people come from, but he also knows how to keep his money. He doesn't give money, and she and anybody you're talking, they don't give money away unless it's for charity. They don't, and they could write it off. They don't give loans that they know they're not going to get back. But what they do understand is determination, due diligence. They understand business ops. They understand startups and things like that because they've been there, done that. And so when someone presents something of value to them and they see the opportunity of where that person's come from and what they've already invested in, then it's more enticing to them, let alone the 10% return or whatever they're being offered. And it's not typically going to be about the money sometimes with everybody that has the money. I mean, once they get into real estate deals together and stuff, that'll be different. There's always going to, they're not going to invest for free. But you get my point. This was, in a sense, it's love money, but it's also, a risk. There's a risk that he wouldn't get it paid back. But the interest rate didn't reflect the gesture, if that makes sense. So I let my clients know, my students know that if they bring me an angel investor, if they think of anybody without judging, and most people right off the bat, you guys are like, nah, I could never ask. There's no way. I don't have anybody like that. There's no, I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey, do you own your own car? Go back to that. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, how'd you get your car? Like, I thought you said you didn't have very good credit. Oh, my mom co-signed the loan for me. Really? You know what I mean? So we just have to work through it. We have to remind them because when they get a co-sign for a loan, if you think about their mindset, they're desperate, right? They can't get the car. They're going to beg, borrow, and steal, and they're not presenting an opportunity for their parents. They're asking their parents or their sibling or their friend or whoever's co-signing they don't even understand the risk. They're just saying, hey, it's not a big deal. Will you just do this for me? I can't get a car. If I don't get this done, it's not a big deal. I'm going to make the payments. I promise, all this stuff. I'm working with a student right now who co-signed for his friend, and the kid stopped making the payment. Now he's got to go to the dealership on this last Saturday and work it out with the funding people at the dealership because this guy's ruined his credit. We just went through Get Funded. The guy's got 2 $750 scores, 750 credit scores. But because he signed a cosign on another car that the kid's not paying, his Experian, the one that everybody uses, is 450 or 500 or whatever it is because the guy's late on the payment. So we don't think about, and most people immedially close off when it comes to that angel investor. And so that's their only option. And that's why stories help. To sell, and then we offer up our help to get them through that angel investor. Now, it doesn't always work. I've done it several occasions where we could not raise the money as an angel investor necessarily just because I got on the phone with them or I met up in person with them. And a lot of times it's because, in my opinion, that angel investor has very little resource themselves and the mindset is very scarce, and so it just is what it is. But we don't. Obviously, we don't stop. And so at the end of the day, when I'm working with folks at the follow-up, I don't want to leave the follow-up with nothing, right? Obviously, you're going to bam, fam. You're going to book a meeting from meeting number 2. We're going to do whatever we can to place that order that day or that night, or my affiliate that I'm working with, my student that I'm working with that is bringing up their student, will go home and place the order for them with them in person. They'll walk them through the Get Funded. I follow up immediately on Get Funded to make sure if I haven't had an email by that night or that day that someone knew that I have a new applicant, then I'm going to make sure that they get it done correctly, and I'm going to help them get through the credit report, because sometimes it doesn't take the credit card and the $1 thing doesn't go through, so you have to go to the other credit reporting agency. My point is, when I'm finishing up with somebody at a follow-up and we have not located $20,000, then I go to the options of the lower options. The lower options are there for a reason. They're there to have options. They're there because not everybody can fund right away. And so the full thing, it doesn't mean they don't want it and all those types of things. I don't like putting people there because they're like, I'm just going to start here when they have the funds, because then I'm going to spend more time on the differences. I might even go into the comp plan a little bit, earnings plan, because their decision is a scarcity mindset decision versus it's the only thing I can possibly fathom getting. But if that's the only thing and we back down to the AIT combo, the advanced combo, or we back down to just the advanced or just the essentials, I want them to get started somewhere. There's a reason for that, right? And so, the other thing that you're going to go through, in my opinion, when you're at your follow-up is a payment. Like if you're looking at a UGA combo and you've got a payment issue, you've got to weigh the options of 10 grand down or a full $8,000 fully paid for package, right? So you've got to weigh these options, not what's best interest for you, but what's best interest for them based on their payment and what they can afford and where their money is and what their end of the month balance is. And if they're going to understand velocity banking, then they can use credit cards and really not extend their monthly bills. If you show them velocity banking or experiment with them with velocity banking, and then they commit to watching the class. So there's, if you're not watching that class and you're not experimenting with velocity banking, then you're doing yourself and your clients a disservice, because that's a very good way to help them fund when it comes to not having an extra payment at the end of the month. So, but I want everybody to finish up the end of the day of a follow-up in my third or fourth or second touch with an order, with a path and a plan, and especially a funding option and where we're going to be. And so we want to know where they're going to be working on the money, and we want to know where they're going to be, what order they're going to place. And, orders can be placed and not followed through with. So that's not a problem. You can place an order with the good intentions of having a combo, and then you can place an essentials later. But if I know they're going to buy an essentials and all of a sudden we get back up to the combo, I just leave the essentials alone and I go with a new order. But I want to get that essentials placed. I want to get that advanced combo placed if that's where they must start. I've had probably, I'd have to add it up, maybe 6 advanced combos placed in my time frame in the last 2.5 years. And every single one of them is upgraded within a 6-month period, and paid the upgrade fee and done the upgrade. I'm not opposed to an advanced combo, especially if that's the only place to start. I'm going to tell you this. Back in the day when I started, there was a CD set, and the CD set was $3,500. I think there was 10 or 12 CDs. Chris Wilson was on there. Mark Kohler was on there. There was some real estate and some business, and I think they were CDs. They were not. They're CDs, and they were not videos. And it was $3,500. And then our other package added up with all the live education and the whole combo thing, comboed with that. We called that R2E2, and that thing comboed together, something like that. I can't remember. And I started there, not because I didn't want the combo, but because that was what my girlfriend at the time had money on her credit card to pay for me to get that. So I started right there and got that. Then I didn't get into real estate. I started studying the class. And then I went out, and I'm going to get this question here right now. And then I went out and I found the money. I'll finish up on me finding the money. This question is from Merle. Merle, you're awesome. Great training, Bill. Thanks. What type of place do you use for your follow-ups? That is an awesome question. So I don't like loud places. I've done it there, and it doesn't work. It's very difficult. I don't like small tables. When you got a small table, you can't put a drink on the table. You can't have a laptop and their laptop. You can't have if they have a phone, everybody's got a phone, and you can't have your notebook. I like a larger table, a table for 4 to 6. I like a corner booth. I do use restaurants, but if I plan to eat, I eat first and then we get into the follow-up, right? Rarely do I like to eat. I have a really nice place that I use, and it's my gym. And my gym is a club, and my club has a restaurant in it that during the day, there's a lot of tables in there, not many people. But there's actually a bartender there. There's drinks, and then there's food, and they can order, and it's a very cool setting, but there's very few people. It's very quiet, and all the doors are closed. There's glass doors, and it's away from the gym. It's pretty interesting because you can go work out and then come back and have a beer. But anyway, we don't drink during the meetings, obviously, but I really like that area. But if I don't go there and I have to meet someone partway because our valley's so big, I like Panera Bread. They have big tables. It's a little loud in Panera, so I try to sit off to the side, like a bread company or one of those places. Even a what's another example? More of a self-service type restaurant where you don't have sit-down service and we're wasting someone's table that is being paid to be a server, and then we take it up for 2 hours and we don't order any food. That's not fair to the waitress, right? But if it's a go up and order your own food type of sit-down place like that, I don't feel bad taking up the table for the whole 2 hours because there's not a waiter not making any money. So I think it's respectful of that to not waste someone's table unless you're ordering food and drinks or whatever during the whole course so that waiter can make money or waitress can make money. But if you're going to pick a restaurant, pick a non-loud restaurant. Starbucks are great, but they're slammed. They're super busy. They're super loud. Their tables are small. And I don't think they're as conducive unless it's just me and one other person. But if I've got my team there and my student and their guest, and then they bring their spouse, we got 3 or 4 people, I'm not going to Starbucks if I can avoid it. And Gary Lawrence, PAC member Gary, he does it at his house. It's quiet. It's his domain. He's comfortable. He rules the roost there, and that's where he does it. And he has people drive to him. You know, he's older. He's not going to get on the freeway at 3 o'clock. If you want this opportunity, you come see me. And he does it on Saturday and Sunday when traffic's less. I don't work on Sunday. If I can avoid it, sometimes I do it. And sometimes if the house is in the middle, I'll go to my student's house or their house if it's a good time for me to travel to someone and they're relatively close. But it's not a neutral site. But I have been and closed business at people's houses. And it's quiet. They're comfortable because they got kids and they don't have a babysitter and they got dogs or whatever the case is. It's convenient. When it's convenient for them, they're more comfortable. And when it's convenient for them, it makes like you're making a sacrifice. So I like all that as well. So that is an option to drive to their house and do it. That's where I do it. I'll leave you guys with this great freaking question, man. It's awesome. I appreciate those questions when you guys ask because it really helps me work with what you're thinking. I'll leave you with this. When I got started, I found the money. Now, I'm an A personality. I was older. I was determined to do this. And so my affiliate, he's not even a part of the company anymore. Hadn't been for a long time. And anyway, he didn't hold my hand through the funding. I had to figure it out on my own. I tried getting it for 30, 45 days on my own and finally figured out that I had to get an angel investor to help me, a family member. I don't know, in today's day and age, in my opinion, when you're working with someone who's looking for the funding, who's determined, you got to follow up with them. You got to keep them at a meeting. You got to keep them at a new event. You got to, Michael sometimes you hear him take people out for coffee or whatever, even if they're not ready for funding and placing the order, but he's just building that relationship. I think you help them. I think that you don't go to the bank with them and get a loan, but you know what I mean? You follow up with them and ask questions and see how it's coming along and what have they thought about it? Thought about anything new? Have they talked to anybody lately? Have they, did they call the bank? Did they call their credit card company? Did they hire a credit repair company to work on their credit? Did they, are they, you're their coach, you're their friend, you're their mentor, you're their whatever you are, and you're going to get paid on this. So, you know what I mean? Like it's important that you that you're checking in periodically and helping them help themselves through the funding. So anyway, I don't think everybody's like us and is going to go out and do it on our own and stuff like that. Next week, I'll talk about a few other things I didn't get to. I'm going to talk a little bit more about real estate and what people do with, I don't know, I'll think of something, but like, I get a lot of this people that want to do deals to make the money or they want to go save the money. I got answers to all that and examples of all that, how that works. But anyway, I hope this was helpful. It's 9:03. I got to respect everybody's time. I just think you guys are awesome. Thanks everybody for being on the call. I think we got up to over 70 people. That's awesome. Thanks for reaching out to other folks. Harry, you're very, very welcome. Thank you. I really hope this parlayed off of what Michael's going to talk about again tomorrow. He's really going to go into the funding options. He did it. I mean, some of the things he said yesterday were just spot on. And, there's a reason he's number one. So get on that call. And Christian is just killing it on his trainings as well. And just stay on these trainings and get your people on these trainings and take it, use this. Shelly, you're so welcome. Everybody, if you need me, you got my number, 760-533-3141. That is my number. Thanks for being here. Make it a great day. Have fun. Get some follow-ups going. And here's to a good 2019. All right. Love you guys. Happy hunting this week. Make it good. Make some offers. Go to your meetings and bring somebody with you. All right. I'll talk to everybody soon. Later. Thanks, you guys.